What's up guys, my name's Brandon, and if you just got a new M4 MacBook Air, you already went through the setup process and maybe now you're a little bit overwhelmed of what to do next, this video is going to help you out because I'm going to show you the first 24 things that you should do after unboxing and setting up your brand new MacBook Air. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is pretty basic, but you need to go into your settings and go to General and then go to Software Updates and make sure that you are on the latest software version because there will be a day one macOS Sequoia update. Okay, so this is already driving me crazy. The next thing you need to do is change your trackpad settings. So we do have a trackpad here on the MacBook and the scrolling speed and the direction are just not what I like. So if you go into your settings and go down to the very bottom, you will see that we have a trackpad down here. Click on that. And then first off, we have our tracking speed. So if you don't like how slow the cursor moves around, at least for me, it's a little bit too slow. I like to increase this to about right here. That way it's a little bit faster and I can get to where I want to go quicker. Now, also, you might want to change when you go down here to tap to click. That way you don't have to actually press down on the trackpad to click something. Like for this, for example, if I turn this on to tap to click, I could just simply tap right here on my trackpad without fully pressing in, and that will select or deselect that option. That's very helpful. It's just handy, and it also puts less wear on your trackpad. Now, also, if we go to scroll and zoom right here, I personally like turning natural scrolling off. This is on by default, but I like scrolling in the direction that I'm actually going in. So if I'm scrolling down, I like my screen to scroll down. If I'm scrolling up on my trackpad, I like my screen to scroll up. So I have basically, I guess, unnatural scrolling is what I prefer, which is weird. But yeah, I like to turn that off. And then you also have these other options here that you can change if you would like to. But there's another 3-finger gesture that I think you'll like even better. So if you go into your settings and go to accessibility and then scroll down until you get to motor and then go to pointer control. And then from here, go to trackpad options. And then right here, we have use trackpad for dragging. This is disabled by default. You might want to go in here and turn this on and change the dragging style to 3-finger drag. This is one of my favorite hidden settings on the Mac, period. I've covered this for a while. I think you should absolutely change this, and let me show you how it works. Basically what it does is it allows you to move your windows with a 3-finger drag. So instead of, going right here and clicking down and moving this window over, or, moving a folder over by just clicking and dragging it, you could do that same thing with a 3-finger gesture. So if I put 3 fingers right here on the top of this window, I can move it around now just like that. Same with this folder. If I, click on it with 3 fingers, for example, I can move it around with those 3 fingers because it's a 3-finger drag. So it's a feature that takes a little while to get used to, but I really love having this. This is my preferred way of moving windows and moving things around with a drag gesture on my MacBook. Okay, so let's get past the trackpad and let's talk about the display options. So there's a few things that you might want to change with the display. So if you go into your settings and go to the displays section right here, you have your different options right here. And when you hover over these options, it will show the resolution. So by default, it's set to 1470 by 956. But if you would like more space, you can click on this and that will just make pretty much everything a little bit smaller. I think default is the way to go, but if you do need more space, you can go ahead and select that. I think that more space is great for the 13-inch model, and I think that default is the best for the 15-inch model, but you'll have to play with that. You can, choose whichever one you would like. And we can't talk about the display without talking about the wallpaper. So unfortunately, we do not get a new exclusive wallpaper for the M4 MacBook Air. However, I do think that, especially if you have the new blue color like I have right here, I do think that the iMac blue wallpaper looks really good on here. So go ahead and change your wallpapers. You can see you have these options down here for that. Okay, so this is already driving me crazy, so we need to change this as well. So go into your settings, go to lock screen, and from here you might want to change these settings so that your display does not dim and go to sleep just after you walk away for 2 minutes. You might want to change that. So turn display off on battery when inactive. So this is set to 2 minutes by default. I think this should be a lot higher unless you don't mind your display turning off very often. I personally like having this set to at least 10 minutes, and you will have to put in your Touch ID here as well. And let me clarify here. I think that if you work in an office, it's okay to have 2 minutes. That way somebody can't go and snoop on your computer. But if you work from home, I think it should be a little bit higher since you don't have to worry about anybody getting on your computer when you're inactive. And one of the most important things you should change for the display settings, in my opinion, is going to be hot corners. So if you go into your settings and go to desktop and dock and then go all the way to the bottom, you will have hot corners down here in the bottom right. If you click on that, you will see that the only hot corner that's enabled is is the bottom right to pull up the quick note. So what a hot corner is when you put your mouse in that corner, it will trigger a certain action. So you can see it will pull up the quick note, but you can change that. So if I, for example, for the top left, I want to, go to mission control, I can do that. Or in the bottom left, I can do maybe Launchpad. So now if I go in the bottom left, you can see it launches Launchpad. The top left, it launches mission control, as you can see up there. Now, something you might want to change here is that while you're selecting an application, you can press down on a modifier key like Command or Option or Control and take a look at this. It changes so that your action does not trigger unless you're holding that trigger key while also going up in that corner of the screen to prevent any type of accidental triggers, because it happens a lot with hotkeys. So I think you should add a modifier key to reduce those accidental triggers. So if you want to go to the desktop, for example, hold Option, for example, and then click desktop, and now you can see it signifies it there with the sign. And now if we hold Option and go up in the top left, you can see it will show the display, but if we don't hold Option, it will not do anything. Now there are some other settings in here that we need to change, but we'll talk about those in a moment, because I also want to talk about the default application that you see down here in the dock called iPhone mirroring, because this is something I think everybody should go ahead and turn on and at least experiment with, because it's super helpful. So what this does is it allows you to mirror your iPhone to your Mac. So you can get quick access to iPhone apps, you can view and act on notifications, and you can also drag and drop from your iPhone to your Mac or vice versa. So this includes photos, documents, and more. So if we go ahead and hit on continue, and now we're going to allow notifications from iPhone, which is another feature, and we will need to configure that in a moment, but we're going to go ahead and get started. And now it will actually show my iPhone's screen on my Mac once I unlock it. So you might need to put in your Touch ID right here to show it for the first time, and now it will display it once I lock my device. Your device does need to be locked and it will connect, and you can see that you can authenticate automatically. That way you don't need to authenticate every single time. So I'll do that automatically. And there you go. You have your iPhone mirroring on your Mac right here, and you can actually see all of your applications. You can go into them, you can see your notifications, all of that. Now you might also want to learn the keyboard shortcuts. If you go up to view right here, you get a quick access of them. So it's basically just Command 1, 2, and 3. For Command 1 is to go to the home screen, Command 2 is App Switcher, Command 3 is Spotlight. So if I go to Command 1, for example, you can see it will take me back to the home screen. Command 2 will put me in the App Switcher right here, and then Command 3 will pull up the Spotlight search. And something really cool is that you can also drag and drop files from one to another. So if I wanted to, transfer over a file from my Mac to my iPhone, I can just simply drag this over here into Notes, for example, or into Files or Messages, whatever the application, and you can see, there we go. It's right there on my iPhone now, which can also be very convenient. And by the way, once you mirror your iPhone, you will also start to get notifications on your Mac from that iPhone. So if you go into your settings and go down to notifications, you will see that you have allow notifications from iPhone. So that's turned on by default, but you can go in here and turn off certain applications that you do not want to be mirrored from your iPhone. So for example, if you get a notification on your iPhone and you're okay with it on your iPhone, but you maybe don't want it to be on your Mac when you're working, you can disable that. So for example, if I don't want something like Amazon Alexa and Amex to show up as notifications on my Mac, I can disable those, but they will still be enabled on my iPhone. And then also if you go back, you have summarize and notifications. That is turned off by default, but if you want to summarize those, you can go ahead and do that right there, and you could select which applications you want to be summarized. Now, the next thing you need to do is try out the new 12 megapixel center stage camera. So yes, we finally have an upgrade to the front facing camera here, the only camera, I guess, on the MacBook Air, and it's upgraded from 1080p to now a 12 megapixel camera with center stage. So if you go up here to the top right on your menu bar, while you have FaceTime opened up, or if you have, Google Meet or Zoom, it doesn't matter the application. If you click up here and you make sure you're on that tab, you will see that we now have center stage along with desk view. So make sure that you know this exists, because center stage is amazing, because what it does is it follows you around in the frame. So if you move or if you go up and down, it will follow you and keep you in the frame to keep you centered. So this is great, especially for like a 13-inch MacBook Air that may sit a little bit lower, and it makes it so it doesn't look like it's way beneath you like it normally would. So like here's what it looks like without center stage. So look how low it is. But if I turn turn this on, it raises it up and puts it closer to my face. So super handy for video calls and for FaceTime calls. And of course, we do have desk view as well. So what this does is it basically, basically makes your Mac look down. It uses AI to like look down at your desk, and it allows you to basically hold up like a phone, or when you're writing down notes or something for a presentation, you can have that desk view that shows at the same time as your face, which is really cool in certain circumstances. I haven't really found a great use case for it, but that is something you can explore as well with the new camera. Now, speaking of the display, the M4 MacBook Air now supports 2 external displays while the MacBook Air is opened. So you do not have to close your screen. You can actually use the MacBook Air screen and 2 other external displays at the same time. So basically 3 displays you can now do with M4, which is amazing. With M3, you had to close the MacBook to use 2 external displays, and before M3, you could only hook up 1 external display. Okay, so I don't know about you guys, but I'm not as anxious about my battery life on my MacBook as I am on my iPhone. So I actually like to have the battery percentage showing up at all times without having to click on the icon in the status bar up there. So let's change that. So we're gonna go into our settings, and we're gonna go down to Control Center right here, and then go down until you see battery. And from here, we have show percentage. That's off by default. You might wanna go ahead and turn that on. That way it shows the battery percentage at all times up there in the menu bar. Now you could also do show energy mode. So by default, nothing happens when you click right here, but if you change this to show always for energy mode, now when you go here, you could easily access low power mode if you would like to. So I think that's something that you should turn on, especially if you're somebody who uses low power mode a lot, maybe when you're traveling, to preserve your battery life. And by the way, this is also where you can clean up your menu bar quite a bit. So if you don't need all this stuff up there, like spotlight search, for example, I don't like that showing up there, because you could easily do that with command spacebar, a very easy thing to remember. So you can disable that. If you go down here to spotlight and you just do don't show a menu bar, it will clean it up like so. And you could do that for everything up there, including the clock. The clock is kind of long right now. It includes all that information. If you want it to be a little bit cleaner, you can do that. So you can maybe hide the day of the week if you would like to, or if you don't want to show AM or PM, you could hide that as well. So it's a little bit cleaner. You can do all of that right here. Okay, so the next thing you need to do is install some of your must-have applications. And one of my must-haves is Clean My Mac. And even if they were not sponsoring this video, I would recommend it because it's basically like having your Mac get deep cleaned, and it's something that I use regularly. So Clean My Mac spots and removes duplicate files, system cache, and basically all the unnecessary files that for me took up dozens of gigabytes of space. I just run this smart care scan to get an overview of what's eating up my storage, and it just takes 1 click to remove those files. On the left panel over here, we have cleanup to clear cache and junk files, protection to scan for security threats, performance to manage background tasks, applications to properly uninstall apps and remove those leftover files, and also my clutter to remove duplicate or large and old files that I may no longer need. And my favorite part about Clean My Mac is that it lives up in the menu bar for quick access. I don't have to open up the full application every time. It just shows me all this information right here, like my CPU and RAM pressure, how much space I have left on my drive. It's just perfect for cleaning and also maintaining your Mac, and you could just access it all from the menu bar. So yeah, clearly Clean My Mac makes my life easier and saves me a lot of time and storage space by finding and removing files that I didn't even know were on my Mac. So if you want to try Clean My Mac free for 7 days, click my link in the description below, and if you use my code Brandon20, you'll get 20% off. But aside from Clean My Mac, there's also some other applications that I would recommend, like if you want a clipboard history application, I like PastePal, but there's also an app called Mackie, MACCY. And if you're into time management like I am, the Rise application is tremendous for that. It's the most feature-packed time management tool I've found. And then also CleanShot X just makes your screenshots look 10 times better than they would if you didn't have an application like CleanShot X. So I will leave links to all these down in the description below. And if you want to learn more about these applications, I actually made a full video on my favorite Mac apps, and all of these were included in that video as well. So I'll leave that linked down below. Okay, so let's head into Safari. So if you use Safari for your web browsing and you watch videos in YouTube a lot like I do, you will need to know about the video viewer. So if you go up here to the top left of the address bar and you click on this little icon right here, you will see that we have video viewer. Now you could also access this by clicking and holding right there on that, and it will launch the video viewer, which not only makes you have basically no distractions on your screen, you could always see that video and nothing else. So it's great for watching, something long form especially, But if you go into a new tab or if you go into a new window, you will notice that it automatically puts that in picture-in-picture mode. So you don't need another application or another setting. You just need this, and you can move, you can kind of, resize it, and you can move it around to the different corners on your screen for that picture-in-picture. You can also pause it right from there as well. And if you hold on the command key, you can move this picture-in-picture window to wherever you want. It doesn't have to be restricted to one of those corners. And you might also want to go into that same section and go to show reader view and make sure that you view websites, certain websites in the reader view mode, because as you can see here, it's a lot less distracting. You don't have all those crazy ads and all those other, colors. It just looks a lot cleaner when you have the reader view right here. Okay, so we cannot go any further without talking about Apple Intelligence and ChatGPT. So go into your settings, go to Apple Intelligence and Siri, and make sure that you have Apple Intelligence turned on. Now, you might also want to turn on Siri right here if you did not enable that from the initial get-go, from your initial setup. Now also go down here to ChatGPT, and I would recommend having ChatGPT turned on. Even if you don't know how to use it, I will show you in a moment. It is so handy to have, especially on the Mac. So we're going to go ahead and enable ChatGPT. You do not need to sign in. You do not need an account for this, so don't worry about that. Now, if we go back, and you can see right here that for Siri, you can see that we actually have, a certain way to trigger Siri. So it says right now the keyboard shortcut is to press either command key twice. So I press command twice like that, you can see it will launch type to Siri. So we'll enable that, and it launches it up there in the top right. Now, if you don't like that keyboard shortcut, you could select one of these other presets, or you can customize and create your own custom preset to launch that. So I'll do like option S, for example. So now when I press option S, it will launch the type to Siri. That way I can also press command space to launch Spotlight, for example. And the best thing about having ChatGPT enabled on your M4 MacBook Air is that you'll always get an answer to everything that you ask, even if Siri cannot answer that. So if I ask a question like, what's the best way to get the lowest interest rate for a 15-year loan? Siri might not know that, but if I go ahead and hit return, you will see that it will use ChatGPT to answer that. So you can go ahead and use ChatGPT. Now, if you don't like that prompt always showing up, you can change that. So if you go into your settings and go to the ChatGPT extension, and right here, confirm ChatGPT requests, I would recommend turning that off. That way you don't have to click every single time for it to go into ChatGPT. And I could also do something like look at my screen and what does it show? And now it will use ChatGPT to basically read that screenshot, and it will tell you what it sees. So it will say working with ChatGPT, and then it will give me an answer of what it sees on my screen. So that's also great if you maybe have a troubleshooting issue. You could ask ChatGPT to solve it for you. Okay, so the next thing you need to do is clean up your dock. It's pretty messy by default unless you restored from a backup. You're going to have a lot of applications down here that you probably do not need and are going to be very distracting. So what you need to do is, there's multiple ways of deleting an app. So you can right click right here, like on Maps, and go to Options and then Remove from Dock, or you could take and drag and hold and it will remove it right there as well. So we'll keep FaceTime, but with contacts, just drag up and hold and it will remove that application from your dock. Okay, so there we go. That looks a lot cleaner. Now we also might want to remove our recents for a cleaner dock as well. So these recent applications right here, you might want to disable those. So if you do, and I like moving these as well, so you can move your icons down here really easily by just clicking and dragging and moving it over. And again, because of the setting that we changed earlier, we could also use a 3-finger drag to move any of these things. So if I want to move my notes, I just 3-finger drag and I can move it to wherever I would like. I don't need to click and hold the traditional way. Anyways, if you right click on your dock and go to dock settings, it will bring up your settings right here. And this is also where you can change a few things. So right here, you have show suggested and recent apps in the dock. So that is this section right here. So you can go ahead and disable that if you want this to look even cleaner. Now you also might want to add some widgets. So if you right click on your desktop, you can go to edit widgets, and this will allow you to add widgets to your desktop. And I actually find these to be very handy. So if you want to add something like, the clock, for example, we can have calendar right here. You can even pull in widgets from your phone. So if I go down here, I can have all these applications that are on my phone. So like my Tesla, if I want to see the battery charge status of my car, I can do that right there, and it will show it using the data from my iPhone. As you can see, it shows my battery percentage right there, which is pretty cool. So it's really great to have these widgets on your home screen that can be quite handy and quite useful. Now, the next thing you need to do is know how to tile your windows. So for this, what I mean is if you go into a window right here, then you go to your window settings, you'll see that with macOS Sequoia, we have this move and resize section where you can change and move these to certain parts of your screen. So let me show you what I mean. So if you move this one to the top left, for example, it's going to move that app to the top left. If I go here and go to window, and of course you can use the keyboard shortcuts here to make it easier as well. But if I move this one to the right, you can see it goes over to the right. App Store actually wasn't a good one to do for a quarter because it can't go that small. So we'll change that to the calendar. So we'll go to calendar and then we'll do this one for the top left corner. There we go. So you can see that. And now for settings, we'll do bottom left corner for that one. You can see how it will basically organize your desktop for you. However, you will see that we have this margin here in between our applications. Some people do not like that. And if you're one of those people, you might want to go into your settings right here and then go right here to tiled windows have margins and turn this off. And take a look at that. You can see in real time, the margin goes away and it takes up the full real estate on your desktop. So I would think that that is a must-have to turn off on a MacBook, especially a 13-inch, that way you can take full advantage of the full screen. But yeah, just keep in mind, you need to go in here and learn these keyboard shortcuts. So for example, you can see they're all right here, or you could just, of course, click on them if you would like to, or you could also make these a little bit easier if you go into, this is a little bit advanced, but if you go into your settings and then go down here to keyboard and then into keyboard shortcuts and then go down to app shortcuts, make sure it's all applications. And then for the menu title, all you need to do is put in whatever it shows right here. So like top left, for example, I'll just put in top left. And then I could do the keyboard shortcut, which could be just like, I don't know, command left or option left rather. So if I do option left, there we go. So now if I do this and do option left, you can see it moves it to that corner using my new keyboard shortcut that I just had set up, and it shows it right there. So here's something basic, but I need to talk about it because it's very important. So if you go into your settings, go to Touch ID and password, you need to set up your Touch ID for an additional finger if you have not done so already. So you could do the same scan twice, you could do a different finger, but more importantly, you should go down here if you have an Apple Watch and set up to unlock your MacBook Air with your Apple Watch. So this is such a key feature. I love having this because it allows me to unlock and get into my Mac super quick when I'm wearing my Apple Watch. So you might want to turn that on. You will need to put in your passcode, but it's going to make your life a lot easier for unlocking your Mac. Okay, so the next thing you need to do is set up web applications for your most visited websites. So for example, I have Notion here, I have Gmail, and I have YouTube. Those are my 3 most used websites that I use on a daily basis. So I like to add those as web applications so they act as an application down in my dock that I can easily access. So all you need to do is when you're on that website, go up to File and then go down here until you see Add to Dock. Now once you see that, you will get the option to rename it. So I would just rename it to that. You could also change the glyph icon right here if you would like to. You could always change that later as well. And now that's actually an application down there. So I could do the same. Let's just go to YouTube and do it for that as well. So we'll add to dock. It's called YouTube, but there we go. And now when we go into one of these, it will open it up in its own app window, which is really cool. And it's also cool because you will have your extensions in here as well. So if you have like an ad blocker or anything like that, it will also work in the web app. Okay, so we talked about this earlier, but I want to mention it again because you really need to understand how powerful the Spotlight search is. So if you go to your keyboard and you press the F4 key, it's a little magnifying glass right there. You could do that, or you could press Command space together at the same time, and that will pull up the Spotlight search right here. You could also move it around like so. So you could do this to quickly access different applications. So if I want to open up Safari, I can do that, and then just simply press on return. It will open up that application. It's great for that, but it's also great for math problems. I use this all the time. If I want to know a solution to a math problem, all I have to do is put that in there and it will give me the answer right away. And of course, you can search for people. You can see, images from Google. You can see websites, headlines, shared links, all of that's right here as well. Now, if you don't like all the results you get in the Spotlight search, you can tweak that. So if you go into your settings and then go to Spotlight right here, I would consider deselecting a lot of these that you do not want to show up in Spotlight search. Sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming if you have things like music, movies, mail and messages, just different things you may not want to be showing in the search results. This is where you go to turn those off. I'd also strongly consider checking checking out an app like Raycast or like Alfred. These are basically replacements for Spotlight Search, and it just gives you a lot more functionality to your Mac. So I'll leave links to both of these down in the description below. A lot of people prefer Raycast. I actually like Alfred better, but it's up to you. I will leave both of these down there. I think they're worth a try if you like doing more complex things on your Mac. Now, the next thing you need to do is learn the keyboard shortcuts on your Mac. Now, a lot of these are going to be very obvious. I'm going to state the obvious ones up front, but there are some that are a little bit more advanced that you may not know about that I think you will benefit from. So if you press Command A, that will select all. That's a pretty obvious one. Also, if you press Command C, that will copy. And then if you press Command V, that will paste. Now you can see that when I paste that text right there, it includes the hyperlinks. If you want to paste text just in its raw format without any formatting whatsoever, including bolds, italics, links, anything like that, all you have to do is press Command Option Shift V once you have something copied, and it will paste that text as just the text itself, no formatting. Also, if you hold down on the Option key and you press the arrow to the left or the right, that will go to the next or the previous word. And if you hold on the Command key and press one of the arrows instead of Option, that will go all the way to the beginning or all the way to the end of that line. And same with the top. If I press Command Up, it will go to the top. Command arrow down will go to the very bottom of the text that's presented. And by the way, you could also add Shift in there. So Option Shift arrow will select that text word by word, and then Shift Command arrow will select that whole text, that whole line. Or again, if you press up, it will select all the text up. Press down, it will deselect all that text. And if you already have some text selected, you could press the Control and Return key together, and that will open up the contextual menu. Now, one of my other favorites is if you're holding down on the Command key and then you press Tab, it will pull up all of your opened up applications, and you can keep pressing on Tab to go through and cycle through the applications. You could also hold the Shift key to go in the opposite direction. And then you also need to know the quick way to screenshot or screen record on your Mac. So if you press Command Shift 3, that will take a full page screenshot. You can also do Command Shift 4 to get a little selector here of what you want to screenshot. You can get very specific right there, and it will show the preview in the bottom right. And if you press Command Shift 5, that will give you the start for a video recording, a screen recording. Okay, so one of the most used applications on your Mac is going to be the Finder application. So it's about time that we customize this to your liking, because there's a lot in here that you will most likely need to change because it looks like a mess, honestly, right now. We have all these tags down here. We have these different iCloud things. This just doesn't look the way I want it to. So let's go ahead and change that. So first things first, go up to your Finder up here and go into Settings. And you want to make sure that you set your Finder window default. So I personally do not like always opening up to recents. I like opening up to my documents folder. So that's going to be completely personal preference. But when you set that, the next time or every time you open up Finder, it will default to that specific location that you put in right here. Also, I don't like showing the items on the desktop at all. I like my desktop to be clean. So I deselect everything from right here. Now, if we go over to tags, me personally, I don't use tags whatsoever. So, you have your tags right here, but I just like going in here and just, you can deselect these, or what you can do is if you go into your sidebar settings right here, just simply deselect tags down here at the bottom, recent tags, deselect that, and that will get rid of all of those tags. And while we're in here, we may as well delete some of these other things as well from this section in our Finder, because there's a lot of unnecessary stuff in here, like AirDrop, for example. You do not need AirDrop in there. I'll show you a better way to do that right there. Also, recents, you can have that if you want. I personally do not like having recents. It's just always so jumbled up to me. And then iCloud, I personally don't use the shared folder in my iCloud, and I really don't use iCloud Drive either, so I like removing that. But if you do use it, you can keep it right there. And then also your locations, if you don't want any of those showing up, you can remove those right there. Also, when you go over to advanced, you might want to go ahead to, when performing a search, and change this from search this Mac to searching the current folder. So that way, when you're inside of a folder and you go to search, it's going to search for that folder first, and then you get the option to choose outside of that folder. So if I start searching searching for something, you can see it will start searching in that folder right here. But if you want to change it, you can change it to the entire Mac. Okay, so now once you're inside of a folder, so I'm just on my desktop, for example, if you right click in this section, you can change what you want to show up and not show up. So if you like having like date added, for example, you can add that right there. And all of these sections can be resized. You can make them really small if you want, or really large. You can also click and drag and move these over. You can use that 3-finger drag as well. So just take 3 fingers on the trackpad and move it over, and order these in the way that you like them to be. I don't like date added, so I'm going to remove that. I like date modified better. You also have your list view right here. So if you like it to be, showing up as icons or columns or gallery, you can do that. I personally like having list view better. And if you go up here to this top section and you right click and go to customize toolbar, this is where you might want to change some things as well. This is also where we're going to add airdrop in to quickly and easily airdrop. So locate the airdrop icon right here and simply drag this up into that top bar. And now you have an easy way to always airdrop a file from that top bar, the toolbar right there. This is also where you can remove some of these sections or add any of these sections that you would like to. So for example, if you like iCloud for some reason, you could also put that up there. You could also remove these very easily by dragging them outside of that. I don't use tags, so I'm going to move that out of there. And also the share is kind of redundant because I always just, send it to airdrop. So I'm going to remove share from there as well. And this already looks a lot cleaner. Also, when you're hovering over a file, if you press on the space bar, it will give you a preview of that file. You could also hold the space bar, and then when you let go, it will, hide the preview of that file. You could also see how much storage a folder takes up if you just, press the space bar when you're over top of that folder, like desktop, for example, takes up 627 megs. But what I personally like doing instead of that is going up here into your Finder and then go to View, and we're going to enable 2 different things here. So show status bar, that below is going to show us the amount of storage available on our Mac. So I currently have 162.65 gigs available on my Mac. I like having that always down there. And then also if you go to View, I like having the path bar show up. That way I can see which folder I'm in and kind of the hierarchy of that folder. So that's also very convenient to have in your Finder at all times, so you never get lost. So I don't know if this is just me, but I do not like getting iMessage and FaceTime calls on my Mac. I like keeping those just on my phone. I know I might be in the minority, but if you're like me and you're also in the minority, or if you just don't want to get messages from every single account on your Apple ID, I would recommend going ahead and configuring those iMessage and FaceTime settings. So if you go up to your messages and then go to settings, go to the iMessage section, and then go down here where you see your phone numbers and your emails, and deselect any that you do not want coming to your Mac. And then the final thing you should do is strongly consider getting an external SSD, because we do only have 256 gigs of storage for the base model M4 MacBook Air. So get an external SSD drive. I will put some of my preferred options down in the description below. That's going to be great for, not having your storage be all the way up here where you only have 1 gig of available storage. So that's one thing. You might also want to look into getting a dock of some sort so you can get an SD card slot and maybe some other things added on to your Mac as well. So I'll put some of my favorite accessories down there in the description below if you're interested. But anyways, guys, those are the first things that I do every single time I get a new MacBook Air. And that's exactly what I did after getting this brand new M4 MacBook Air. So I hope this video was helpful. I will have other Mac, tips videos and tricks videos down in the description below. If you want to get even more advanced and learn about more tricks that you can do with your Mac, those will be down there in the description and also up in the cards above. But if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate if you gave it a thumbs up. Also, let me know your thoughts down there in the comments below. Once again, shout out to Clean My Mac for sponsoring this video. Be sure to check them out. It does also help support me here on the channel. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.